All right, guys, we got a good show for you today. We have Logan Workman. He went to Lee University. He's ranked 219 on the MLB draft board. Thanks for calling, man. I'm really excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so what we kind of do is on this show, we kind of like, do a timeline. We set it up from like, high school, going down through your career. So, can you kind of sum up like your high school baseball career and how it went, and everything?
Yeah, so starting out, I was actually a catcher. Actually, in high school, from my freshman to junior year, I was a pitcher too, but mainly focused on catching. Actually, wanted to go to college as a catcher. Couldn't hit, so once I found out that that was kind of the big thing, they find catchers with good arms and hope that they can bat at least 200, and I was batting almost sub 100.
Yeah.
I figured out that pitching was probably something I needed to focus on. So I really just kind of focused that after my junior year, kind of talked to my coaches, and they were just like, hey, we're going to sit you down and really like look into a good throwing program that we have and get you into just straight pitching. Had a little velo jump my junior year where it kind of looked like there was progression, and as a catcher with having a strong arm, you could see type, small
Yeah.
increments of velo coming out, and so that entire summer going into the fall of my senior year, I just got into a good throwing program, weight program, started CrossFit, and saw the jump and went to a camp at Lee, and from then on, it was there.
Yeah. So you talked about, you were a catcher for 3 years and you went to pitching, senior year. Do you think that like impacted a lot of that was not pitching, 4 years in high school, like recruiting wise and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a high recruit coming out of high school. I went to the one camp at Lee
Yeah.
that was in the fall of my senior year. Had three I had two Division II schools looking at me. One was Lee, one was Carson Newman. Had NAI, Bryan College, and then the few junior colleges with Columbia State, Chattanooga State, Cleveland State. All of them were
Yeah.
looking, and I ended up just going on two visits to Lee on Monday, and then the Friday I went to Bryan, and after that I ended up committing to Lee.
Yeah. So, it's awesome to hear, everything happens for a reason why you go to these schools. I have to ask, going in your freshman year, what was your mindset? Because, a lot of these guys, I'm going to a small D1 school myself, but a lot of these guys go into, big schools and they're like, yeah, I'm going to be pro down the line. What was your mindset going into it?
I mean, I had some talk coming into coming in my freshman year of college of opportunities to push myself forward as long as I stayed on a good track of baseball. Started seeing some opportunities to get stronger, see some velo jumps, stuff like that, and just going into it, I was working to work for innings. I mean, as a freshman coming in, you look on Twitter and Instagram and talking to coaches, you hear about other guys that are coming in, JUCO transfers, and we had a Tennessee transfer that was actually my roommate's brother that was a pitcher. So you're looking at all of these, all these circumstances that are coming in, and you're just kind of thinking, can I get some innings or at least work for some innings? So that whole fall was just an opportunity to show that being as a freshman, you still have the same type of talent that these junior college juniors and seniors and transfers have too.
No, yeah, 100% I agree with it. I'm feeling it now. I'm gonna be a freshman. I'm, working to get my time playing. I have to ask, so you had correct my stats could be wrong, correct me, but I'm round it. So your sophomore year, you were around like a 450 ERA. Then that junior, you were at like a point 0.8. What was that big jump? What was that in your game? You feel it was a lot different for you to have that success your junior year as you did.
Well, my sophomore year, I was about halfway through. I was a closer, relief closer, because my freshman year, I split the closing role with having 3 games on the weekend and two being in a double header Saturday, or yeah, usually it was normally Saturday. Having that role, had split time, so I started in my senior year, and I went to a closer, so I cut down a lot of innings, a lot of time, so I had to figure out how to get back into that game like situation where you're going 5, 6, 7 innings. And so going into summer ball was one of the big things that helped, of just going out and throwing and playing in the Coastal Plains League was one of the top 3 leagues in the country. Playing in that league, you have the Cape, and then always neck and neck with Northwoods and the CPL. So CPL just kind of put, you had guys from Georgia and Vandy and Tennessee and NC State and Duke. So you have these, big name guys, and they're good talent. So you got to step your game up a little bit. And throwing against those guys were something that I just made me better. Grew my confidence in saying, if I can throw against these guys and dominate in the CPL, I can dominate D2 hitters.
Yeah. I'm gonna, move up my question. I was gonna ask you, talked about the Cape Cod League. That's one of the leagues I'm talking to about calling games next summer. So that's funny. But I had to talk about the Coastal Plain League. I went to a game in Morehead City a while back. When I went there, it was just something about that, summer, college league. And you played for Thomasville. What was your experience like with that?
It was I like Thomasville because it was just a fun area. I had a good host family that they did a lot. I mean, that's one thing where if you look at it, the host family sets the tone for the entire summer. And so having a good good host family that you're able to just come home and be able to it's they're opening their home and relaxing for you to relax and stuff. So I think that was the big part. But playing in the CPL, it's one of those where it's not it's not your typical Division II conference weekend. You're able to go out Monday through Friday, some Saturdays off, Sundays off, Mondays, and then play 6 days out of the week where you're just able to go out and have a good time and enjoy the game of baseball, where you're pitching maybe once or twice a week and that's it. And the rest of the time you're out there watching baseball and just having fun.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. I remember going to that. And it was a lot of fun. That was a long time ago for me. This season, you went 8-1, had a 1.8 ERA. Team was number 2 in the nation. It must have been weird because you guys had to deal with like COVID and a lot of that stuff, but you guys got to play a fairly almost pretty much a full season. How did it go for you personally, and then as your team, you guys accomplished a lot of the goals you wanted to?
Yeah, the one thing that we all noticed was as the season progressed, the COVID restrictions that we had were there, but we just kind of like brushed them off. Early in the season, we had some scares where we had a lot. In the fall when everything was going down, we had hit after hit after hit of guys getting it and then contact tracing. But for the most part, I think once we got into the season, we just kind of settled in and we're like, as long as you wear a mask, then we kind of looked at it as like, if we're wearing a mask and somebody tests positive, well, we're wearing a mask. So if they're going to say that masks are the one thing that kept us safe, then we wore a mask as long as that was the case, I think. But we as a team just kind of settled in and didn't let that affect anything that we were going to do. We had one weekend canceled with Alabama Huntsville that they actually tested positive. They had 14 guys test positive, so it cut their weekend before us and the weekend after us, or the weekend with us. So I don't think it affected us any, but I think we had a good run with it and made it a good season to remember.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I know a lot of people had games. I mean, look at it. North Carolina State, they got out of the tournament from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
That was a rough one. I have to ask, like, what would you tell a kid, right? Because a lot of kids, they all think, hey, I got to go to like Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, to possibly get drafted. What would you tell them? Because you look at you're surrounded by those guys, but you went to a D2 school.
This is one question that I always like answering for people. People want to go to the name and not the playing time. I think a lot of people look at it like, hey, I'm going to Mississippi State, or hey, I'm going to North Carolina State, or I'm going to Tennessee, or I'm going to Vanderbilt or Georgia. So are 30 other guys that are being recruited that class.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at a mid-major, you probably have about 15 guys. You look at a D2, I came in with they had a really big class coming into my freshman, ending coming into my freshman year. So they lost a lot. I think we had maybe seven total transfers and 6 freshmen. So we had 13 guys. Well, they ended up redshirting 3 of them. 2 quit, and actually had one get kicked off for personal reasons. but you're gonna end up losing that. Whereas you go to a big name school, there's going to be probably 15 to 20 guys redshirted, while half of those are getting cut and getting sent to other schools because they couldn't make it at the school. Well, I think you just need to go somewhere. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter the name. You could go to the smallest school possible, smallest junior college, a D3 JUCO that you possibly could go to, and scouts are going to find you. If you make a name for yourself, they're going to end up finding you, and that's the case. I don't think going anywhere else for me would have helped me any more or any less. I think that was the big thing is, wherever you go for playing time, not for the name and the apparel and all the gear that you're going to get for going to Mississippi State and wearing Adidas, or Tennessee and wearing Nike, or South Carolina and wearing Under Armour. Like you can buy all that stuff online. It's not, I can buy custom cleats from South Carolina and be just fine, but it doesn't make me a Gamecock. But I don't really care to be. I mean, it's just I went somewhere that I was going to get my education and get playing time.
Yeah, you hit it right in the nail. I mean, for me personally, I had offers from like big school like Alabama and stuff, but they're like, you won't play for 2 years. It's like, why would I want to go to school where I'm wasting half my eligibility? And why would I rather go to a smaller school and I can get to play and get better? Also, I thought you would hit a spot on. My grandpa personally was a D3 baseball coach. That's what he'd tell his kids. He had a few of them drafted. He's like, you can come here where you get personal attention, every day, where you're not just like a big class, as you said. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you nearly signed with the Yankees as a non-drafted free agent. Correct? Is that
they were the high up team coming out of that last year's draft. I had multiple, I had basically half the draft offers to sign. All were going to push that as much as they could. But the Yankees were the one team that pushed, I think, really high, because they were only they only slotted themselves 3 picks last year because of the compensation for Garrett Cole. So they lost their 1st and 5th round picks. I don't know for certain if that 5th round would have helped me out for them to take the pick. That's one thing that we'll never know because of the compensation for it. But they were the one team that I did notice a lot that were making the big push last year, and I thanked all of them for whenever they called. Got a call from at 9 o'clock when it started to probably like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Throughout the day, I was getting a call, and I thanked every one of them, and I looked at it and I said, hey, I mean, at the end of the day, I can go back, finish my education. I put up good numbers, and I put a name. I made a name for myself starting my freshman year on, and I think that the biggest thing was, if I can make a name for myself now, my name's still going to be there next year.
Yeah.
And I may be a year older, I may be more mature. I can build maturity and anything like that, but having that 1 year will help me in the long run. It may hurt me because of age or whatever their case may be that they make it out to be. But I'm gonna boost my numbers next year and try and push myself to a better slot.
Wait, so when that happens, right? When they're like calling you, you don't have an agent, so you're just talking to them personally, and you're like saying, "Hey, is this the best choice for me?" Or how does that work for you?
Well, I mean, you have advisors, and you have financial advisor, or what we call life advisors. So I was working with a guy, for a little bit. He would just kind of give me some advice on, hey, if they're gonna call and they're gonna do stuff like this, we'll play it out, but this is kind of where we're seeing. And this is our opinion. You can take it how you want to. But you talk to a lot of people, and they kind of give you that advice. Not only this guy, but some former coaches, and even my coach at Lee. Everybody kind of gave that advice of, you can take this offer, but there's not going to be any minor league baseball. You're not going to get paid. You're not going to get anything, you're going to get benefits, but you're going to get the money. And I signed with the Yankees.
Yeah.
That's kind of all you got with it. And then it just kind of, everything sounded good
Yeah.
early on. Hey, you're going to get, we're going to sign you. We're going to get you money. And it kind of, sounds good. Then at the end of the day, you're like, well, I'm getting signed and that's about it.
Yeah.
So I just kind of came up with that, came to the conclusion and, just said, hey, I'm going to go back to school, graduate and go from there.
Yeah. So, MLB draft's coming up. How are you guys talking? Is a lot of Zoom? Have you worked out with any of them? What's kind of like going on with that?
Yeah, I've gone to a few workouts. I have a few more coming up. I was gonna actually play in that new MLB draft league, but
Play for what was
State
it?
College.
Yeah, State College.
Yeah. So I was gonna play. I was gonna play with them, but I had some workouts actually start lining up later, where I don't know how they did it, but it was they kind of once our season ended, they gave me like 2 weeks before I even was going to report, and then I didn't even know how my rotation would work out. So everything kind of pushed back to where if I go to this, I'm gonna probably get 3, maybe 4 starts at best.
Yeah.
And then workouts started lining up. Well, that started pushing me back even more to where my report date would have been June 7th.
Yeah.
I had to work out June 8th, June 13th. And so everything started pushing back. And I was like, that's going to put a lot of travel. That's just going to put a lot of financial, burden on that of, fly. Cause I would have had drove 2.5 hours to Pittsburgh, fly from Pittsburgh, wherever was asked to go, then fly back, drive back 2.5 hours, play again, do this. And so it just kind of worked out that the workouts were a better option. Plus going to these workouts, you're not just pitching for scouts or maybe an area scout or a cross checker. You're going to pitch in front of the GM, the owners, the pitching, coordinators, the pitching directors. So it just works out in the long run.
No, yeah, you get a lot more personal connection there. I have to ask, right now for like with the draft and stuff, when you start getting like, the minor league and stuff, what do you want to work on right now? I saw you talked about your fastball. You've gotten that, velocity on that, and you have a change ball slider. What are you working on?
I'm looking to add a cutter. I've added a cutter to the mix. I don't know if that's going to be a 4th pitch or if that's just going to be something that I can sharpen up the slider with. But the idea is just to work on, true command and making sure that every pitch that I have is a major league level pitch. Everything that I feel comfortable with throwing, I see as a major league pitch. Scouts, here or there think that one pitch is better than the other, maybe need to work on this pitch or that pitch. And I take everything into consideration when I throw bullpens and work out and get feedback from them. So I think everything, going into it, I feel is top tier major league stuff. But even at that, there's always something to work on moving forward, going into, your 6 weeks or your 2 weeks of instructs, and then you make that move to low A or high A, depending on what the team thinks of you and how they see you fit, and then you finish out and potentially go back to instructs in October and then work your way back spring training.
Yeah. Final few questions. Growing up, did you look up to any like current or former players? Modeled your game after you talked about being a catcher, and any like catchers you modeled, looked at and stuff.
I grew up a Braves fan, so I always watched Andrew Jones and Francoeur and Chipper and Smoltz, and when he was there, and then you had Freddie come in later in that career, but still playing with Chipper. Brian McCann was there. As a catcher, really, I just watched the game. Younger, you're just watching the game and you're a fan of players and a team, and you don't really understand that true in-game strategy and things that go along throughout the game. But as I got older, I started watching and understanding that, you have some stuff that Trevor Bauer does. And, I watch I listen to his podcast and watch his YouTube videos of kind of stuff and mentality. And you see Scherzer and you see Kershaw and
Yeah.
Chris Sale and Chris Archer. And you have these guys that everybody has their own flavor to the game.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that you have to be a certain, Max Scherzer mentality or Trevor Bauer fun or Chris Archer this or Chris Sale that or Kershaw curveball. And everybody thinks you have to be like that. And in reality, adding something from that to make your own game better, because everybody has their own style of baseball.
Yeah.
Um, you make the game fun how you play it. And looking up and watching these guys, it's really fun to see how they do it and take something maybe small from their game and add it to yours to make your game still just your own personal aspect of it, and then with a little flavor from everybody else.
Yeah, for sure. Final three questions. With the MLB draft, what do you think it'll be like to hear your name called? What are you expecting?
The last year I actually, I went to bed one night and I was watching YouTube, and I know this had to come up. It was the first video that popped up, and it was actually, it was in the NFL draft and Baker Mayfield video, like how they had put it. And, obviously that's a first round
Yeah.
NFL, first round overall first pick in the NFL draft. And it's very different, but
Yeah.
it was really cool to watch and see how it kind of played out, knowing that the day two is probably a little more quicker, and understanding that the phone calls are going to be, bang, bang, round after round. It'll be interesting to see how it's played out. I know for my plan is I'm just going to have my phone with me and, an AirPod in or two, just hanging out, talking to friends and family throughout the entire thing, but understanding that, as soon as that phone goes off, no matter text message or phone call, whatever the case may be, it'll end up being go time. And I, shut everything, shut everything away and push it to the side and understand that, like, now I've got to focus. And, third round,
Yeah.
that third round we're going to be watching, not too high right there. I'm not understanding from other teams of, seeing if it's going to happen or not there. But I've heard talk of top 5 rounds. I've heard talk of 6 to 10. I've heard talks of 5 to 10, 4 to 10. It's all there from teams. But third round, we're going to kind of give it a look. I've got a plan to kind of check teams on who's higher up right now from talk versus who's not. And kind of start highlighting teams that may have, their strategy on picking players throughout the first 3 rounds, and understanding that 4th round on, see kind of who they're picking, how they're picking, and then we can go from there.
No, yeah, for sure. It's interesting to hear, how you go back where you're really looking, who's picking who, when seeing where the dominoes might fall for you. Final 2 questions. Finish off with these same questions every time. Because a lot of the guys help out. We're athletes and we all can learn from each other. Different things. Through the course of your career, what's the best piece of advice you think you ever heard?
You have that. Don't leave any doubt. Don't leave anything. You don't leave anything in the tank. I think, from our coaching staff, the biggest thing I can think what they said was, if you play every game like you're the underdog,
Yeah.
and you'll have a little more fight in you. We've been in some games where we were the high ranked team, and we were the, at this year we made our runs from top 15 to top 10, ended up being second in the country for who knows, 3, 4, 5 weeks. And the big thing was every weekend they'd say, you have an opportunity to lose right here. Every game you have an opportunity to lose, so play as the underdog, and you'll have a little more fight in you than what you think. You play it where you're the better team than you are the better team. You're the better player. You're the better organization, however that may be. But in your gameplay, you play sound mind, whatever sport you're playing, and understand that you are better, but have that grit that maybe that team is better than you, so you're gonna have to play a little bit better.
No, yeah, I get that 100%. You can never, there's no off nights really. You got to show up every night. Um, Final question, down the line, when your baseball career is over, how do you want people to remember yourself?
Um, there's a lot of people that may throw out that, you for some people that they get that big head of understanding that, they drafted or they got this big job or they got this big pay raise, and they become cocky, and they cut everybody out because they think they're better.
Yeah,
I want people to understand that what I do is confidence and not cocky, and
yeah,
understand that for most of my career, in any sport that I played, I was always looked at as maybe the second best,
yeah,
or not good enough to play on that team, or that, in that sport, because they had already had somebody picked out or anything like that. So I would want anybody that knows me knows that there's a little cockiness, but it's more confident, because I was always told I was not,
yeah,
I was never gonna make that high level, or that high jump, or that best team, or continue playing this sport. So I have a little bit of edge and a little bit of chip on my shoulder
yeah.
to prove people wrong. But I always want people to understand that it's all confidence that I've taken over the years, and not to take it to heart when I do something, because that just gives me an edge to do better than what people expected of me.
No, 100%. I think a lot of times when you hear athletes, that were overlooked and different things, it made them work harder, make them the player they would never have been if they hadn't been overlooked. Sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. So, when you kind of do these successful things, yeah, you got to have a little bit of chip on your shoulder, be like, yeah, I'm doing this and no one thought I would. So I 100% get that. Logan, I appreciate you coming on, man. It means a lot. I wish you the best of luck with the draft, and down the line, I go to a bunch of baseball games, hopefully see you play. So I thank you for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. This is great. I love doing things like this. So this is a great thing to have, and a great tool to use down the road. So keep it up, and keep things rolling.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Absolutely.